Welcome to Just Relationships, the show that offers you concrete ways to make your relationships better. Whether it's your boss, your spouse, your children, or your friends, the quality of your relationships in life directly affects how you feel about yourself and the success you achieve. Your host, Dr. Duffy Spencer, a psychotherapist, telecoach, author, and seminar leader, will interview top experts to help you learn to manage this essential part of your life. And now, here's your host, Dr. Duffy Spencer.
Greetings to you. Do you find that you are not completely happy with your weight? Do you find, even if you are not overweight, that you are pale, perhaps bloated, perhaps lacking energy, not really healthy as you should be for whatever age you are? You could be eating the wrong foods. And today we are looking at the power of sugar and flour as the starch and the sugar that are actually toxic to our bodies and that are such a part of the American diet that we think it's normal and okay to eat toxins. Well, if you know about what I am speaking, and yet you say, I just can't. I can't give up desserts. It's impossible. I cannot. And I want you to meet Rena Greenberg, who is back. Our last show last week, she did part 1 of how to break up with sugar. Rena Greenberg, her book is called Easy, in big letters, Sugar Breakup. Welcome back, Rena.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Duffy. It's great to be here again.
Oh, thank you. So, did you want to just recap, or I can help you recap in case people did not listen to the last show? Is there anything really, really important that you want people to know from the last show, and then I will just jump in?
Thank you. Yeah, I think the most important messages that we talked about, which I really love that, and you shared your own wonderful stories, and I too also, really struggle with sugar and carb addiction. So we know what it's like. We're not just, giving advice, and it's really my passion to help people realize that the goal is freedom. And weight loss is really the side benefit, and to know that freedom is absolutely possible. We don't have to be trapped by food or the compulsion to eat, or 24 hours a day thinking about what we're going to eat, what we're not going to eat, we don't have to be controlled that way in our lives. We literally can be free of the compulsion to eat and get to a place where we eat really to live and not live to eat. We're eating food to nourish and sustain our health, mental, physical, emotional health, and to enjoy every bite, where we're completely past dieting and weighing and measuring and deprivation. Mm-hmm. Nobody has to live like that anymore. We really, really can be free. And yet, when we're free, it doesn't mean that we're, not enjoying food. No, we're enjoying food more than ever before. And that's, I think, the key message.
And that's the beautiful paradox, isn't it, Rena Greenberg? That we actually enjoy eating real food. And when, as I shared in the last show, and I'll just repeat this part, that I've lost about 35 pounds over the last couple of years, and I did it through hypnotherapy, through just making the decision with the help of the hypnotherapist, no sugar, no flour, no grains. And it was so embedded in me because I chose it to be embedded. The hypnotherapist said, I can install this program inside of you, but you're the one that can just simply pick up, and then you have everything, the old patterns back again. It's up to you. That this is all based on self-will. And the way you put it is the extraordinary power of positive intention and making that one decision that really makes all the difference.
Exactly. And to realize that it is, once you realize something's your choice, I always think about Romeo and Juliet, and I think if they had just been allowed to date, nothing ever would have happened, probably would have come of it. They probably would have broken up in a few days anyway. Rather than, but so often we tell ourselves, or we're told as kids, you can't have this, and it becomes a thing. What do you mean I can't? So, no, then I want it even more. But the reality is when we choose something, it's an act of freedom. We say no, and that's why, hence the title of the book, Easy Sugar Breakup, because I thought, well, it's a lot like when you break up with somebody. When it's your decision, you can walk away. And even if you have some good memories of the times that were, you realize it's not that anymore. And you just can't go back.
Yes. And I remember the days that I was in the dieting mentality, and I would sit there and everyone else would be eating dessert, and I would be feeling so frustrated and so mad, and how come they can eat that and I can't, and all of this. Yes. And I have to say, Rena, that now when I see people eating junk food, I feel sorry for them.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's not at all appealing to me.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the key. And that's the power we have in the mind. That's the power of hypnosis and self-hypnosis, that we can change the way we think about food subconsciously. And so, really, that's why I, wrote the book, to give people the strategies. How do you get from sitting there and just being so jealous that other people, as you said, get to eat those foods? How do you get from there to the place where now, and I feel the same as you, I feel sorry for people who eat those foods. They look disgusting to me, and that's the same thing my clients say. They say, I just don't want it anymore. That's a completely different mindset, because the reason diets don't work is the minute you go on the diet, you're waiting for one thing and one thing only, and that's to go off it, right?
Right.
And so you're waiting to go back to eating the way you used to eat. Well, that, of course, is going to give you the exact same results it gave you in the first place.
Yes, and go ahead, Rena.
Oh, thanks. The point being is that when we shift that mindset, we never want to go back. We look forward, and we think, I love my new relationship with food. I love that I chew my food slowly. I love that I appreciate every bite. I love that I prefer healthy, clean food. I love drinking water, and I love feeling lighter. I love that my clothes are loose. And we start to make that connection between what we're putting in our body and how we actually feel.
Right.
And then that becomes so empowering, and then we want to do more of it.
Right, how we feel, not just how we look. Now, I am imagining so many people in our listening audience are saying, oh, this is way, way too extreme, and you can have everything in moderation. And I want to hear your answer, and before I hear your answer, I want to just say that I will tell people, I will make it very personal, if you can eat this food, sugar and wheat, in moderation, and okay, all the more power to you. I personally learned after many, many years that I could not. And so my power and my freedom is, I cannot handle it, so I won't. I surrender. And once I surrendered and said, if sugar came on the market today, it would be classified as a drug. It is extremely toxic to the body, as is simple starch, and it's not necessary, it's detrimental. So that has been my answer. So what would you say to the people who say you can have sugar in moderation and starch?
Right. That's such a great question, Dr. Duffy, and I'm very compassionate, because I think a lot of people, do want to believe that they can have everything in moderation, and I really think it's one of the biggest lies that the food industry tells us. But here's the thing, it would be very easy, and you read the book, you see, I don't give people a diet per se. And the reason why, and even when people come to me, for personal hypnosis, I don't give them a diet, because dieting, it just will, what happens is it's going to end up like every other diet, where people are just going to want to stick with it. They're going to say, okay, I invested this, I'm ready to do this. And then in days, weeks, months, they just throw that diet out the window, because it feels that it's imposed upon them. Mm-hmm. So each of us needs to discover for ourselves, what's the eating plan that's going to work. For you discovered no sugar, no simple starches.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, that makes a lot of sense with your body type really being that, the sugar carb addict. And a lot of people may also come to that same conclusion. But honestly, I have had people lose even over 100 pounds, and they're still able to eat some foods that maybe I don't eat. Some people have to be really careful even around fruit, even though it's such a healthy sugar. But for some people, it's a real trigger. So what my program does is really help people to figure out what are your personal triggers, because it is different for each of us.
Right.
And then once we know what our triggers are, it's easier to then, as you said earlier, make a decision, set that intention, and follow the eating plan that's going to work for us. I remind people that in all areas of our life where we're successful, we follow rules, whether it's as a parent, as a husband or a wife, in our jobs. Of course, when we're driving, we follow rules. And in this area of our lives, if we're suffering, it's because either we're not following any rules at all, or the rules are arbitrary, or we're following someone else's rules that we then want to rebel against. So one of my exercises in the book, the Easy Sugar Breakup book, is create your personal food map. And I actually had a woman, Janice, in Boca Raton, Florida, and she lost over 100 pounds with my program, and she said that was her favorite part. That helped her, even though that she credited the hypnosis for losing that weight. But the food map is a way to create an eating plan for yourself that doesn't feel rigid, that feels more really balanced, and it helps you to discover what are your personal triggers and what are the rules that you want to set for yourself. One of the reasons it sounds like these rules really work for you is because you created them yourself. No one imposed them on you. And that's what I encourage other people to do. So I help people to connect to the deep inner wisdom of the heart, the deeper mind, even the soul, that can guide each of us to know exactly the foods that are best for us and those foods that need to be cut back on or eliminated completely. And then what are those foods that we can eat in moderation? Because it's a little bit different for each of us.
Well put. And I found for me something that for years now, I have not had one glitch, Rena, not one glitch. And the reason is that I don't count calories. I don't even do volume per se, although I stop eating when I am no longer hungry. Yes. I eat when I am hungry, and beyond that, there is no portion control, no counting calories. The simple thing is, for me, I have identified my trigger foods that are not good for my soul, my body, my health, my mentality, my emotions, and that is your junk food, your over-processed, as they say, white food. And it's as simple as that. And people ask me, how do you do it? Well, basically, I just eat protein and vegetables and a little bit of seeds and nuts and avocado and berries. And that's really it. And I am perfectly happy. I don't feel the least bit deprived. So I just want to underscore your point, which is we succeed by following sane, sensible rules. However, the difference is, as adults, we are the ones that create our own rules. So what is it that works for you as an individual?
Exactly. And, there's so much, especially now with the Internet, I can see how confusing it is for people. I mean, we go on there, we hear, you've got to eat vegan, you've got to eat raw or vegetarian, and then the opposite extreme, paleo, keto, and how do people know? And I say, if you really look at all these plans, there's one thing they all have in common, and that is they all include unprocessed foods, whole, real, clean, unprocessed foods. Yes. And so that's something that all these eating plans will agree on. And beyond that, each of us really needs to listen to the body and to discover, what is it that's going to keep us in balance. And sometimes people are curious, how do you know? Like, for example, for myself, I really had to, of course, like you, eliminate sugar. But it was also, I found fruit could be a trigger for me. And how would I know? It's interesting. When I would eat fruit, I would become starving. Like I'd be so much hungrier than I was before I had the fruit. And I realized might be very healthy. I want my kids to eat fruit. My husband eats fruit, so I'm certainly not opposed to fruit. But for myself, I realized it is not balancing my blood sugar. It is triggering my blood sugar. So I would then more go for the protein, which always balanced my blood sugar. It was like taking a pill, like medicine for me. Yes. And that really worked. And yet I learned so much from my macrobiotic days, because even though I'm a vegetarian wannabe, I wish I could eat that way, but, I'm a carb addict. So, of course, I can't really eat that way with all those grains. But what I did learn was how to prepare delicious vegetables and plant food so it tastes wonderful.
Right.
So it really turned out to be a balance of these different plans that worked really for me. And that's what I encourage people to do is we don't have to follow a rigid plan, someone else's plan. Instead, we can really take a little bit of this, a little of that, listen to the body and see what works. And creating that food map is a way to really know what foods can I eat 90% of the time, what foods are just never an option for me, just like I would never rob a bank or punch someone in the face. I do not eat these foods. That doesn't mean if I'm in a bad mood I eat them. Never. And then we have those everything in moderation foods in the middle that we can have once in a while, and it's not going to derail us.
Right, exactly. So we're looking at, for me, it's for my metabolism, which is relatively slow, and if anyone has ever studied Ayurveda, it's Amakapha, but the equivalent in America in English would be the endomorph and the ectomorph and the mesomorph, and I am the endomorph, the tendency toward round and slow metabolism and loving sweets. And so what I have found is that eating just quality protein and complex carbohydrates completely keeps my metabolism in fabulous working order. And like you, I have discovered that protein grounds me. And I'm not talking about over-proteinizing. I also love my leafy greens with my extra virgin olive oil and the garlic. And it's just, to me, it's such a huge treat. I again, as I said in the last show, I don't feel at all deprived. As a matter of fact, I just want to say that when I look back and see that by simply giving up junk food, I could have what I have now, which is clothes that always fit in relatively small sizes, and never dreading trying on clothes because they'll look so awful on me, and feeling energetic. And since I've lost the weight and since I have stopped eating junk food and only eat whole food, people have asked me if I've had a facelift. They tell me I look at least 10 years younger. And if I would have known just how wonderful it would be, and what I have given up is nothing compared to what I have received.
Oh, it's so well put. It's so true. And I bet part of the reason you're glowing and radiating like that is because you're happy.
Yes.
And earlier, I started talking about the imprisonment, that feeling of, and the worst part is, as horrible as it is to be heavy physically, it's that shame and guilt and embarrassment. And some amazingly successful people, successful out in the world, in their careers, and come to me, and you could just feel that, the shame, like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I get this area of my life together? And all that's really wrong, there's nothing wrong with the person at all. It's just following the wrong blueprint, which is typically a diet. And diets are not going to work, because subconsciously we are always seeking pleasure. We always want to move away from pain. And diets represent restriction and pain. So we've got to get away from that mindset and instead look at food as every food has a vibration. What are the foods that are going to uplift me mentally, physically, emotionally? And these are the foods that I prefer. And we retrain the brain through hypnotic suggestion to actually prefer these healthy foods.
That's interesting that you put it uplift me rather than sedate me, which is how people use food as medicine to self-medicate. Yeah.
Right.
And I want everyone to know again, this is Dr. Duffy Spencer. We are Just Relationships, WHPC, and to look at easy sugar breakup, Break the Habits and Addictions That Control You by Rena Greenberg. And you are the founder of Wellness Seminars, Inc. And your book is available on Amazon and I imagine through your website and in local bookstores.
Well, the Easy Sugar Breakup, the best place to get it, of course, is Amazon.com.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, my work, if people want to know more about that, my website is easy, EASY, willpower.com.
Mm-hmm.
And they can learn more and a lot of wonderful videos and articles, information, to help people. And then you mentioned... Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. You also coach and counsel people around the world, I imagine, through Skype?
I do, and I do. People say you can do hypnosis over Skype. It works beautifully. Sometimes people want to come see me in Florida and do a little retreat, but often, most people I just work with on Skype, so they're in the convenience and the comfort of their own homes, and it works wonderfully.
Wonderful. And in your brand of hypnotherapy, do you help people, as you say, write their own food map and help them to see what works best for them?
Absolutely, right. It's all about empowerment. The opposite of what they come in feeling, ashamed and disempowered. So my program is all about empowerment, helping people to discover, when am I physically hungry? What is my body needing? What am I needing in my life? And it's amazing, all areas of our life are connected. So it's amazing the incredible shifts people make in their lives, not just with weight loss, but just with feeling more free and more assertive in general.
Right.
Instead of feeling, like a victim.
And for me, I felt like a victim, and I was one of these people that was successful in the wide world, putting myself through all my degrees and getting a PhD in social psychology, having a very full clinical practice, doing a lot of keynote speaking, retreats, seminars, college teaching, radio, television, and yet I knew that last bastion, that food, was such a struggle for me that I never trusted myself. If I had lost weight, I felt doomed. Yes, you're going to go back. The yo-yo syndrome. And I felt such a sense of hopelessness that I didn't believe that I could actually be a healthy weight where I had no excess weight and feel good and maintain it. So I do think that when we look at the nature of motivation, it has two components. And one is it important? And the second is, can I do it? So I knew it was important, but I honestly, Rena, did not believe that I could do it for any sustained time. And that's why I applaud you and how you help to heal people by incorporating the hypnotherapy to, as you say, harness your positive intention to be able to have the power of intention to not pick up trigger foods or toxic foods.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. To really give people the tools and the strategies they need, because the subconscious mind is so powerful and it is so receptive. And, just because we've had a habit for a long time in our lives, could be decades, we absolutely have the power to change that, and we can change the way we see ourselves and the way we are in the world and our relationship with food. And when we do, it's unbelievable. Our whole world opens up.
Our whole world opens up when we, again, harness that 90% of that subconscious mind. And what we talked about, and also in the last show, the idea of not only real versus fake food, but real versus fake needs. And when people crave that ice cream or those cookies or the alcohol or the binge TV watching or whatever it is, it's really a fake need, and what they're really looking for. And you talk about, what are your real emotional needs and how to identify emotional eating. And you talk about the need for love, the need, you write about, you write about the need to feel safe, the need to feel powerful.
Yes,
and
exactly.
And the idea of being a self-agent, to have self-agency, that we have control over our own behavior, over our own intentions.
Exactly. We can fill those needs directly. And so often, because many people have developed these unhealthy habits since childhood. Clean your plate, when you finish your plate, people are starving. Or have some cookies and milk, you'll feel better when you're upset. So these messages were literally drained into our minds. And so now as adults, we're just automatically following those messages. And instead, what we can do is stop to really notice them, become aware, and then realize that we're a choice. Do we really need to finish everything on the plate? And if we really don't want to throw away or waste food, that's fine. We can wrap it up or give it away. So to realize we do have options, we do have choices. And part of the problem, too, is to realize that for many of us, it's actually also a physical addiction, because we may have a pre-diabetic gene, or a gene that really where we crave that carb and sugar when it's in when it's in the body. And then once we can acknowledge that, then we can realize, okay, this is the body I have. How can I work around that? How can I still give my body what it needs without constantly sabotaging myself and derailing myself and putting in those foods that are toxic to my body that then just increase my hunger later. And so we start to find new ways to actually manage our lives and our relationship with food. And it's wonderful when we get to the place that we realize, I only want to eat when I'm physically hungry. And it becomes, as you said last show, like a novel new idea. All of a sudden it's, am I even hungry? What is my body needing? So we start to ask ourselves new questions. And if I am really hungry, okay, what is it that my body needs? So we start to give ourselves that loving care the way we would to a newborn child. We would never treat a child, just stuffing it with junk food, or, you'd always imagine, what does my child need? People take better care of their pets than they do of themselves.
I like that. What does my child need, or my beloved pet? Because in my psychotherapy practice, I teach people how to self-parent instead of looking out externally.
Yes.
For all the love and validation and never getting it, not getting anywhere near enough. So we do have to wrap, and I just want to underscore, you're using the word automatic. We have to get off automatic pilot, and really emphasizing the fact that we're dealing with a physical addiction as well, that the brain gets turned on, and we set up cravings by eating this junk food that's $1 billion industry. And please, everyone, if you are suffering or have a friend who is suffering, please get Amazon.com, Easy Sugar Breakup by Rena Greenberg. And your website is easywillpower.com for lots of goodies, real, true goodies. Thank you again so much, Rena Greenberg. And this is Dr. Duffy Spencer saying goodbye for now and wishing you great relationships.